Good afternoon. We'll now begin the Calcasieu Parish Hurricane Laura recovery efforts public briefing. I'm Brian Beam, Calcasieu Parish Administrator. We're doing public briefings now once this week, and we'll do one next week. As always, if something is needed before, we can always call one, but the nature of this effort switching into the recovery mode even more means we don't have to do quite as many, but there's certainly information on all the various agencies' Facebook pages and websites and so forth, so it's there. But it's always good to talk in person. We do have some new things today, some developments, and so we'll start with Dick Grimion, who's going to talk about an update at our pod centers within the parish.
Thank you, Brian. Just wanted to begin by reminding people COVID is still in our midst. I'm wearing my mask. We all ask that you wear yours. Also, wash your hands thoroughly, cough into your elbow or sneeze into your elbow if need be. And also, and maybe most importantly, try to maintain that 6-foot social distancing to prevent the spread of the disease. Over the last couple of meetings, I've mentioned that we would be scaling back the pod sites, and that's the points of distribution for the commodities. And on this Saturday, all of the pod sites will be closed after business on Saturday. That'd be after 3 p.m., except for Washington Marion High School, Lake Charles Civic Center, and Park Place Shopping Center. The reason that one of the reasons we're leaving those open will be revealed. We have some other information that we'll give you shortly, but they'll be needed to support another activity that we're going to begin shortly. So with that, that's my report. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dick, and we'll have Mr. Grimion back in a little while to talk more about another topic that's got some news with it. At this point, we want to ask Sheriff Mancuso to come forward from the law enforcement side.
Thank you, Brian. Things are progressing pretty well for us. I know that a big question right now is if we're going to lift and eliminate the curfew. The chiefs and I met earlier in the week, which we do on a daily basis, and basically we want to go one more week. We still have some very small pockets, although small, of outages throughout the parish. They're not any one particular place, so we want to give it another week, and we'll evaluate it Monday in our Monday meeting. And then we will make a decision. I think we're going to try to meet again and do another public briefing Wednesday. Is that correct, Brian? So we will next Wednesday hopefully have a positive answer for you. We're leaning that way. That appears to be the way we're headed, which is good news for everybody. There are still dangers out there. There's still some road conditions with debris. And look, I can tell you, and I know you probably get tired of hearing this because we compare Rita and Laura, and there's no comparison between the two in reality, but we do compare them. I feel like we're so far ahead of the ball game today as we sit here with Laura than we were at this same time. I mean, we're just barely a few days past a month, and we have accomplished so much. And I'm not talking about just law enforcement. I'm talking about your parish and city officials who have worked very, very hard. Obviously, the plans we put in place for all of this worked out. Now, let me tell you, if you're with us and behind the scenes, hey, look, nothing's gone perfect. You know, we've had hiccups along the way and things and problems that have arisen that are out of our control, but everybody has managed that perfectly, and we have moved forward. We have not had to take too many steps back. We have moved forward. Every day we see progress. So that's all, in my mind, as far as when I look at things, that's all I can ask for, is to make sure we're not going backwards, that we're going forward, and we are doing that. So to the public, I want to thank you. You've been very patient. We did some things a little different this time with letting you come back, and although that has caused us some issues, it has worked. We've managed to get around it. Our utility companies have managed to get around it. We've tried to help them with security and blocking off roads, which we've managed this in a different way, and it has worked. So, but there's still a lot of danger out there, and I want to stress that with the debris, they are picking it up, and they're picking it up swiftly, and they're doing a good job of that. All of our public works departments from all over, and the contracts that the police jury and OEP has put into place, I think is working great, but it doesn't mean it's fixed, and it's probably going to take several months to get it cleared even further. So be patient with that, but also know that there's dangers with that. There's still things that can shift into the road, whether it be with a rain or certain conditions, weather conditions. So be cautious. And that's what kind of scares me about lifting that curfew in the darkness at night. There's still a lot of, even though we have power, there's still a lot of street light damage that has not been repaired yet. There's still a lot of road signage damage that has not been fixed yet. It's getting there. I mean, I see DOTD's doing a jam-up job getting out there. Public Works from the city of Lake Charles and the city of Sulphur and all of our smaller towns are doing it. So everybody's working hard. The parish, they're putting up stop signs and they're getting these road signs up, but this takes a lot of time. And COVID has threw a kink in everything, because when you want to order parts or get things in, it just takes a little longer. So under the circumstances, I think, again, if you wonder why we haven't lifted the curfew yet, because there still are some problems that we're encountering, and we want to get past that before we do that. On a criminal aspect, between all of the agencies, the state police, the sheriff's office, your local municipalities, the numbers are going down. We've had 100, this is since last briefing, we've had 184 stops, 14 arrests. We assisted, some 120 agents, people in just assisting them. May not be even law enforcement related. Business checks, we had 288 business checks. So we're still very busy and trying to keep on top of making sure. We still have businesses that have overhead doors that are open to the public, and we're trying to keep a watch on those businesses. So we still have a lot to do and a lot more work to do, but we are managing it, and it seems to be, again, progressing very well. Arrest, I told you we had 14. Most of those are for normal domestic violence, detainers, somebody that we caught when we did a traffic stop that was wanted out of another parish, some weapons violations, second-degree battery. I'm just giving you some of the highlights: theft of a vehicle, a third offense, DWI. So police departments are getting back to a more routine, normal call volume. It's actually been down a little bit, but now the calls are not so much for looting as they are for just normal calls that we would get: domestic violence and normal thefts and shoplifting, things like that. So I feel like we live in a great community that has seen the disaster, and people are pretty much behaving themselves. We don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. I can promise you, your law enforcement agencies could use a rest. So if you could behave for about 2 weeks and just not do anything, that'd be awesome. I don't know if that's feasible, but I'll make that plea to you. But as a whole, I think it's going very well, and I know we're not back to any type of normalcy yet, nor do I think we will be for a while. But things are going pretty good, and I appreciate the public's patience. They've done a really good job during this under the circumstances, because I think all of us are under a tremendous amount of stress with what's going on in the past 6-8 months. So, Teresa, if you have any questions.
So the curfew is still 10 p.m.
10
to
p.m.
6 a.m.?
to 6 a.m. And like I said, the chiefs and I, we discussed this Monday. And like I said, we are very close, I think, to being able to lift that. But I go back to, although we have power in just about everywhere. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but I know we looked at the outage map, and it was very close to being at 100%. It's not there, but it's very close. We still have a lot of damage to street lights and the lighting that we would normally have, which still makes it very dark at night. Yeah, red lights are working, but again, I think our DOTD and our public works for all of our communities, whether it be the parish or the city municipalities, are putting up stop signs and road signs, and they're getting there. But it's not quite where we think we need it to be right now. So it would just, I think it's just in the public's best interest. Again, I think I've mentioned this from the very beginning. I'm not a big fan of curfews and just throwing it out there for any little thing. I think it's important that we have this right now to give us some stability, give our police officers some stability at night, and it helps them also have a little break too for right now with what could go on because of the lighting problem and the signage problems and the electric problems. I think this helps us keep a handle on crime also. So hopefully by Monday we'll give you some good news. We want to. I think we're ready to lift it. We just want to make sure that we're in a good place when we do that. And we don't, again, our goal is to not take any steps backwards. We're moving forward. I think it's progressing good. From our standpoint, we think things are going good. But we want to make sure it stays that way and we don't go backwards. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Nobody else? Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
To give an example of what the sheriff's talking about, in the unincorporated areas alone, which is what the parish is over as far as roads, we have 1,100 miles of roads. So think about that and how many traffic signs, stop signs, yield, the directional, all have to be assessed, evaluated, fixed, reinstalled, and that just takes time, and that doesn't count the 6 cities, so we appreciate everybody's patience there. Next, we'll go to debris removal. We have Calcasieu Parish Public Works Director Alan Wainwright.
Thank you, Brian. I want to first say thank you to Tony for his comments there. I think a lot of people have been working hard, and I agree with everything that he was saying. The progress has been tremendous. He's well aware with people that he have moving around that, you know, the conditions of things are in, and I support everything that he said just now. Would like to try to add some perspective from the storm standpoint. You know, this tremendous storm that we had and the debris that we're dealing with is really unprecedented. In conversations with our contractors and those that are working here and the ones that have worked all across the South, this is really an unprecedented storm on many, many levels, debris included. On that note, we are in a process now of revising the initial estimates for, you know, total debris. When I talk, the numbers that I have with me today are for the parish, unincorporated only, but we're looking at 150% increase from 2 million to 3 million cubic yards of debris. So, you know, it's just a tremendous problem. I'm sure the other municipalities are in the same sort of situation. So there's just a lot to be done. To date, on parish unincorporated routes, we've removed 1.2 million cubic yards of debris from the road, and approximately 150,000 of that has actually made it all the way to the landfill. I just wanted to kind of take a little time just quickly to give you a sense for how it works. The trucks that come and collect the debris, they bring it to a temporary site. There, it is compressed or compacted so that it can be put into landfill to preserve space in landfills for the parish. We have 8 of those temporary sites that we're functioning out of now. The reason for those also is it shortens the haul distance for the debris trucks to get it off the road, go get unloaded, get back, get another load. So that's the reason for having those, and we're adding those now. It's a little bit of a process to get those sites added, but we're working through that. We're looking to add one in the Lake Charles area, South Lake Charles area, maybe 2 actually, and then one in the Moss Bluff area in the next day or so. So we really believe when we bring those new sites on, we'll be able to bring more trucks in, go faster, move more. But we're moving 60,000 cubic yards a day, and it's really adding up. But with that, we have a long way to go. I know people want to try and quantify the whole idea of a first pass. The first pass is not all 3 million cubic yards at once. Ideally it'll be a big majority of the load, but not all of it. So we feel like the first pass probably has another 30 days left in it at this point, which will probably take us right up to November to get the first pass done. So with that, there'll be a second and third pass as needed, and those efforts will take us into the new calendar year more than likely. So I'm like Tony, asking for people to be patient with the process, and understand that there is, and we understand there's a lot of debris out there on the road still to be picked up, and some people have not seen the first pass yet. So probably somewhere around 50%. If we're 30 days in, we have 30 more days to go, probably around 50% on the first pass. So we're just asking for patience. They're working is excellent. They're getting everything that they can, and we just hope that that's the case. So continue to ask people to sort their debris as much as possible and be patient. Just want to quickly mention, Tony mentioned the signs as one of the things there related to the curfew, and he's right. The high priority signs of first effort was for stop signs. We're now working on what we call second priority signs, which may be the advanced warning sign or a turn ahead or something that letting you know that something's coming up in the road. So without those signs there, it is really hard to navigate. The third priority level signs will be street names, and those that are even less involved in make sure you don't hit something or get in a wreck. So we're working through that, but that's going to be a long process out there on the parish routes especially. But the good news is we have all the major intersections up and at least in a temporary fashion, and you can be able to navigate that as safe as possible. But we do ask you to drive with great caution, and ask for your patience one more time. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
A viewer wanted to know, with the emphasis on picking up the roadside debris, whether the parish and or the drainage boards are trying to make sure that there's not debris in, roadside ditches as well as drainage laterals so that we have another flood.
Well, absolutely, we're concerned, as with everyone else is, on rain and flooding. First part of your question about the gravity drainage districts, we're in constant contact with those guys every week on Monday for sure. I poll, see their progress and see how things are going. They are working in a tremendous effort out there on the laterals to try and open those laterals up as well. We also, at the parish, in coordination with the gravity drainage districts, are preparing an assessment on a system-wide assessment of all the laterals in Calcasieu Parish, which will then be provided to NRCS, the federal agency that would start the process for lateral clearing. With that, it may very well transition to FEMA or one of the other agencies at some point, but we are initiated in a parish-wide effort to do that. So it takes a little time to get that together, but that is happening. On the roadside, we just would encourage people to, if we make that first pass and we're able to get it out of the ditch, understanding people had to do that for a lot of reasons initially. If we get it out of the ditch, we're just asking that you not put it back in the ditch. The equipment that's being used can reach across the ditch generally and get the debris that we need. So every bit that we can help ourselves by not putting more in the ditch, that'll be a good thing. Until then, we'll just, do the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. It's very helpful, and I appreciate Alan explaining the intricacies of this. The debris thing, I don't want to get quoted on this, but I don't know that it's a stretch to say that the debris total, when it's all said and done, will double that from Rita, which was 15 years ago, so we lose track of a lot of information, but it's just sheer size is why this is taking a while. So, but they're out there. You can see those trucks everywhere. Let's take a few moments to talk about utilities. I'm going to start today with Beauregard Electric. They sent a statement. They have some really good news. As of September 30th, which is today, Beauregard Electric has less than 1% of its members without power. And so, like Entergy, they're working on those tough ones right at the end that still need to be hooked up. The co-op would like to express its gratitude to the 1,200 linemen from across the region who poured into Southwest Louisiana to aid in this effort. I know for customers of Beauregard Electric, that's great news, and we're really happy to hear that. We also have Margaret Harris here today from Entergy, and I'm going to ask her to come up at this time.
Good afternoon. We too have good news to report in that we have less than 1% of our customers without power. We're basically almost complete with that original restoration effort. And people continue to make repairs to their homes, so we continue to reconnect customers. And we are entering the phase where those customers will need, some did not have to have inspections through September 30th, but we're now entering the phase where they will need inspections. We do want them to call us once they've had a qualified person make repairs for them, and they can call us at a number that we set up especially for the Hurricane Laura area, and that is 866-557-4240. You can also call 1-800-ENERGY. We will be at this effort for a while because we continue to have a storm team in place. It requires extra servicemen in our area to do these reconnections in a timely manner, and we also will continue to work to improve the resiliency of our system that includes some additional transmission repairs, additional transmission lines being restored, as well as hardening our system. So we expect those efforts to continue through November. Don't want that to discourage you. It's a good thing to continue to make improvements as a result of this record setting. This has been the most damaging storm that we've ever had on our system at Entergy, and I think, as well as the people in this room, we have all made a heroic effort to get to the point where we are today. So thank each of you for your part in that. You mentioned street lighting being important in the safety of our communities, and we do have a team of people right now that have come in this week to assess street light damage so that we can order the correct materials and move forward on that. Also, we've mentioned debris. That is a wonderful thing to see the debris removed from our streets because it feels like just a little bit more of true life and normalcy for us. But I've asked leaders to please ask those involved in debris removal to be as careful as possible because we have had a number of short-term outages that have been caused as a result of the large trucks making contact either with communication cables or some type of equipment that will temporarily spike up the outage numbers. And so, speed is not everything. We ask for them to be careful, and their personal safety is important to us as well. I'd like to thank also the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department for some extra traffic control in some certain circumstances. A lot of times our crews provide their own traffic control, but there have been situations where we really needed your presence in law enforcement, and you've come through for us on very short notice. Thank you. There's one element that's really already difficult for people in terms of ready to move on to the next step to get temporary power for temporary housing or for another need for temporary offices. And we are beginning to work on that, but it was most important for us to first restore power to as many customers as could accept power. So we ask for your patience. We're beginning to move in the direction to be able to work those tickets and get people meeting with folks in order to get temporary power in place. So on behalf of all the men and women at Entergy and all those who came to support us in this effort, linemen from across the country, the biggest logistical effort I've ever seen us make, we thank you for your partnership and your continued partnership as we work together in Southwest Louisiana to recover this area and be strong going forward. Any questions?
We appreciate you, Margaret, and Entergy's efforts throughout this storm recovery. One more item under utilities. We have Suddenlink Communications here today. We appreciate Robbie Lee speaking on their behalf.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you today. I know many of you were present last week when our CEO was in town and gave an update on Suddenlink restoration in the region. And to quickly summarize, we provided an estimated path to full restoration, including our expectation to have service restored to 50% of our customers in Calcasieu Parish within the next 2 weeks, and an additional 20% restored every 2 weeks following that. This means that we expect to be as close to fully restored as possible by mid-November, and we are 100% committed to doing everything we can to make that happen. As we discussed previously, the destruction caused by Hurricane Laura is incredibly severe and requires a nearly full rebuild of our network. And just to kind of speak to some of the other numbers that I've heard today, I believe you said there's like 1,100 miles of roads in the parish. Well, in our network here locally, we have over 800 miles of plant. That's miles, and then there's multiple cables in that mileage. Each cable is a different cable type and serves a different purpose and has to be treated individually, you know. So there's a lot of work to be done. A large percentage of that was utterly destroyed and is having to be rebuilt. And we understand that it's a long process, but we're working as hard as we can to get it back up just as quickly as possible. We have the necessary resources and manpower on the ground to get that job done, and we still face a lot of obstacles and challenges. For example, we still face issues with repaired fiber being repeatedly cut by other workers in the region. And we just can't stress enough to other companies and contractors working in the region, people removing debris, to just be very, very careful and don't cut through our lines or any cable or fiber or power lines. I mean, in general, it's just not safe to, if there's a line hanging from a pole, it shouldn't be touched, it shouldn't be cut. And so we would just appreciate everybody's diligence to try to be cautious around any lines. This would, as lines are cut, it just delays our efforts across the region. And if we have to repair the same fiber lines multiple times, this creates more frustration for you, our customers, and for our crew members. As far as other activities, we continue to work closely with the power company to receive clearance to enter new areas to repair our lines and get them back up on newly replaced poles. The majority of the areas have been opened up to us. We're working closely with local power officials on small pockets where there may still be, some work being done to reset poles. But for the most part, we're clear to go in just nearly every area except for a few small exceptions. Key areas that we're currently working now include the transport routes from Lake Charles to Sulphur and from Lake Charles to Ioway, which are a key milestone to our restoration. In addition, we also are now able to access the Sulphur area as well as move into the central Lake Charles area for restoration efforts. Despite some setbacks, we are making progress. Service has now been restored to 25% of our customers across Calcasieu Parish, or 11,200 customers, and that's up from 20% at the end of last week, which is an additional 2,700 customers back online in the region since last Thursday. Also this week, we reopened our Suddenlink retail store at 1538 Preon Lake Road. The store is open weekdays from 9 to 4. Customers can visit there for a variety of reasons, to deal with issues around damaged equipment. They can swap that damaged equipment at no charge. They may want to look at our mobile service or speak to a service representative about an individual issue they're experiencing that's unrelated to known storm outages. For example, if an entire neighborhood is still out, we are aware of that and are working on it. If it's just a small number of homes or businesses in an area where power's been restored, our reps can schedule a technician visit to assist our customer. And given we have limited amount of reps and space in the store, as well as continuing COVID-19 concerns, we still recommend that customers reach out via our digital channels, phone or chat whenever possible. And the store also continues to serve as a Wi-Fi hotspot location for those needing access to the internet. We launched a new Wi-Fi zone. It's over at Preon Lake Park on the Henderson Bayou side of parking in Preon Lake Park. And as we mentioned previously, the Wi-Fi zones are available to any resident, not just our customers, as a place where people can connect to Wi-Fi for free. And we plan to open several additional Wi-Fi zones in the coming days. We have quite a few teed up that we'll be able to announce just in the next day or two. In addition, we continue to be in touch with school superintendents to accelerate restoration to schools in the region. Of the priority schools that we received from the district, we restored service to Bell City High, Iowa High, E.K. Key Elementary, J.J. Johnson Elementary, and Positive Connections, R.W. Vincent Elementary, Barb Elementary, Ralph Wilson Elementary, St. John Elementary, DeQuincy Primary, DeQuincy Upper Elementary, as well as the District Facilities Office. We continue to work to restore service to the remaining schools on the priority list, as well as the other schools in Calcasieu Parish. I should note that currently around half of the schools across the region have been restored as of today. And as a reminder, all Calcasieu Parish customers will receive full service credits for outages they've experienced as a result of the storm. The credits will be automatically applied to customers' accounts within the next 2 billing cycles. We've communicated this directly to our customers and will continue to ensure they are aware. We remind customers to follow us on social media and check emails and SMS for further updates. Now, we know this experience has been incredibly frustrating. We understand that people just want to return to their regular day-to-day activities, and that's really hard to do without internet connectivity. We're doing everything within our power to get service restored for all residents, and we're thankful for their patience and during this challenging time. I appreciate the time here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any recommendations for businesses that are trying to get back into the swing of things and are struggling due to the internet situation?
Do I have recommendations to the businesses? Ma'am, I'm sorry, I do not. We're working as hard as we can to get services restored as quickly as possible. I know internet is a vital part of business and life itself today, and we're prioritizing areas, that come to our attention based on different criteria, from critical needs to, just in general, these are areas of heightened concern. We're moving as quickly as we can, but as far as speaking to what an individual business can do, I just don't personally have any thoughts or recommendations about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robbie. We're going to hear from the healthcare sector now, and there's some good news, a new announcement. And I'm going to ask Dr. Lacey Cavanaugh, Region 5 Office of Public Health Director, to come forward with it.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. A quick update on our hospitals and clinics in the region. And the good news is that they are in a much more stable place than we were at my last update. Our capacity in the healthcare sector is improving. It is not up to where we were pre-storm, but it is definitely making slow and steady gains. Outpatient services are a little bit slower to return. We still have many primary care clinics and those sorts of settings that are not able to return to their buildings because they are damaged. So that is one of the exciting announcements that he talked about, is that because of that gap in healthcare within the community, we have partnered with the LSU Family Practice Residency Program to be able to provide free, no-cost care, primary care services out of our parking lot at the Calcasieu Parish Health Unit. That is located at 3236 Kirkman Street here in Lake Charles. It is open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. No appointment is needed, and folks can show up and receive kind of basic primary care services. Things that can go there are prescription refills, with the exception of controlled substances. You can get lab orders or x-ray orders there. You can also have a physical exam or receive a referral to a specialist in the community that is open. They're trying to kind of keep track of maybe what clinics are able to open up. We are not able to do procedures at that clinic, but it is exciting, and it's first come, first serve. So if you are in need of those sorts of basic medical services, you can come to the parking lot of the health unit, and we can direct you. As far as hospitals and clinics, we also have the nursing home sector that was hit particularly hard. Some are starting to return, but many are still 3 to 6 months out before they are going to be able to return to the community. One big update that happened at the national level with nursing homes is that visitation is now allowed at nursing homes. Outdoors is encouraged, but CMS, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is allowing indoor visits if certain provisions are met and under some strict COVID-19 safety guidelines. So I know many families have been waiting a very long time for that to happen, and so that is occurring, even though I know our community is probably not seeing it because we don't have many nursing homes that are able to be here right now. As far as our Office of Public Health Services, our Calcasieu Public Health Unit was damaged during the storm, so we have had to temporarily relocate our operations to the Sulphur location, which is located at 201 Edgar Street in Sulphur. And from there this week, we were able to stand back up our WIC services, as well as some of the other services that we were offering out of the health unit here in Lake Charles. So people can start to call the Lake Charles Health Unit again. You'll be routed to Sulphur, and those services are able to be back online, and we are thankful for that. As far as COVID testing, we are still doing COVID testing in the community. It's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Calcasieu Parish Health Unit parking lot, which is the same address on Kirkman Street. We're doing first responder testing, so if you are a first responder and you bring your ID, you can get your results in 15 minutes. For everyone else, the turnaround time on COVID testing has gotten much better since the last time that we spoke. It's now anywhere from 48 to 72 hours if we have to do a send-off test. And so thankfully, it is not taking as long to get results, which is also a good thing. We are also able to offer pediatric COVID testing at that site, which we have not previously been able to do. Those hours are a little bit more limited. The pediatric hours are only from 9 to 2 because that is when we have a nurse on site. But we are able to test children down to the age of 2 now, which is an improvement. Still doing emergency vaccines at that same location, tetanus, Hep A, and Hep B, and those are also available from 9 to 2 at the Calcasieu Parish Health Unit. Just to provide a little bit of a COVID update, we are still seeing extremely low testing numbers across the parish, and I definitely understand why that is because we have many, many competing priorities, as you've all heard. But another thing is that we are seeing a slow rise in the number of cases here. We're nowhere near where we were in July before all of this happened. We're still at relatively low numbers of new cases, but we're also not testing. And so there could be a lot of cases out there that we are not detecting, and we are seeing increases. So it's just something that we have to keep a very close eye on, and we just can't forget about all those measures that we've been talking about for months. I know it's easy to forget about them. We're all tired of them. We're tired of masks. We're tired of washing our hands. We're tired of staying 6 feet apart from people, but those are so important because the last thing our community needs right now is another outbreak of COVID. So if we can do those measures, I know we will stay protected and keep COVID at a level that is manageable so that we can really focus on our recovery efforts instead of having to worry so much about COVID. There is new guidance as far as COVID, specifically for student athletes. The American Academy of Pediatrics has released some new guidance about return to sports and return to play for young people who have had COVID. So I just recommend that any pediatric patients who may be diagnosed with COVID, if you're an athlete, please talk to your doctor about those latest recommendations and how they apply to you and your return to normal activity. And the last thing I want to mention is that with the cooler weather comes the threat of flu. And this is the time of year that we typically start to recommend folks getting flu shots. It'll be more important than ever this year because of COVID to make sure that we're protected against the flu, because we definitely don't need flu and COVID going around at the same time. So just want to encourage folks to start to think about flu vaccines and get vaccinated as those become available. And that's all I have. And Teresa, I'll take questions.
Let's see, the free service at the health unit in the parking lot, does that pertain to both adults and children? And will you be able to get a flu shot there?
So for the family practice clinic that is there, children can be seen there, so it does pertain to adults and children. And flu shots are not available at that site yet. I do hope that they will be available at the emergency vaccine site in the near future once we receive doses of the flu vaccine. So hopefully soon. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh. We appreciate you being here today. Next topic we're going to spend a little time on, and it's news, and it deals with the return of evacuees from what they call non-congregate shelters. And a quick reminder, I'm going to have Dick Grimion explain this process better, but before the storm, there was an evacuation, of course. Several people were evacuated who didn't have transportation, so they were taken on buses basically provided through the state agencies to areas outside of southwest Louisiana, and many of those are still outside of the area, but it's time, we're getting to where that process is now going to be more of the return. So we want to spend a little time on that. We're going to have a few speakers. As Dick Grimion comes up, I'm going to ask him to come forward. I want people to think, one of the things that's a little understated in the recovery, I think the sheriff alluded to it, so many processes in this recovery involve multiple agencies. And if you kind of think of a relay race with a baton, that's what this is. And you don't hear that a lot, but the relationship's already built and the coordination is critical. It's not like one group does this. And this is a great example. It's going to take a lot of logistical coordination. But then the handoffs come also once they're back to a lot of what are called VOAD agencies, which are mainly a lot of nonprofits who help these folks who need services. So there'll be a few speakers on this item, and we'll start with Mr. Grimion.
Thank you, Brian. We alluded to earlier that we'd have an announcement, and what Brian said was what we wanted to talk about today. The sort of the numbers that we're dealing with here, we had about 1,000 people evacuated before the hurricane primarily by bus, and as Brian said, a lot of them are sheltered in hotel rooms in southeast Louisiana. Now has come the time that, in addition to that, let me say this, in addition, we evacuated probably another 1,000 after the hurricane, where we had people who could not live in their homes for various reasons. But now we have people who are wanting to get back to southwest Louisiana, check out their property, and hopefully resume their normal activities. And I'm just going to explain the mechanics of it. Other speakers will talk about different aspects of this, but the persons that are in the shelters in the New Orleans and Baton Rouge area have been interviewed, and have identified through Red Cross and state DCFS some people who are interested in coming back. So the process that we use to get them there, we're just going to reverse it. We'll counsel these people, make sure that they understand what conditions are here, and they're ready to come home. The state will be providing coach buses for the persons to ride back on. They will be received at what we call a lily pad at Chenault Airport. They'll be then loaded onto either parish transit buses or City of Lake Charles transit buses and brought back to their residence. They will be given two bits of advice. One is if you get to your house and you cannot live in your dwelling, then you'll call for 911 and they will arrange to have you brought back to one of the shelters where they came from. Their other alternative will be, and I'm sure others will talk about this, call 211 for help. If you just need maybe just a little help getting by, that you could stay there, 211 would be the number for that. So we will continue the return trip. We've been doing this for about 3 weeks now for people who can't stay for various reasons. We still will be providing that service to get them back to the shelters in the areas where they're providing shelters in southeast Louisiana. So that's really the basic description of how this is going to work. I'll turn it back over to Brian, or we can.
If we could, just want you to mention that. If we could, you may have questions. If we could ask the group of speakers to finish, because they may be related. So
Right.
Thank you, Dick. At this time, I'll ask Mayor Hunter to come up. The city has a key role in this, and we appreciate him communicating that.
Thank you, Brian. This is indeed a major step for the continued recovery and the continued path that we have in front of us to recover from Hurricane Laura. You know, in Southwest Louisiana, a lot of times we think of ourselves as a family, and this is truly one of those moments. Right now, we have a lot of members of our family that are not here right now, and we want them here. We want them to come back home. We also realize that there's a lot of individuals that do not have a home to come back home to. Their lives were unfortunately destroyed by Hurricane Laura, and we realize that. So whenever we talk about bringing people back into Lake Charles and Southwest Louisiana, I cannot stress to you enough how much thought and care and planning has been put into this idea, because we do want people to come back home, but when they come back home, we want them to have the sustainability that they need and the wraparound services that they need. Red Cross has done damage assessments on the dwellings of the individuals that are currently evacuated. Now, the idea is that those damage assessments would have already given an idea as to whether that individual has a home that is sustainable, somewhere that they could come back to. But we also realize that you can't see everything from the outside of a home. Just because a home looks completely intact on the outside, there may have been a leak, there may have been mold that has grown inside, there may have been issues with food left over. And so the most pressing and most the loudest message that I can give to people that are evacuees that are talking about returning to Lake Charles via this transportation plan is we are not going to bring you back in to Lake Charles or Southwest Louisiana, drop you off at your house, wave goodbye, and say good luck. That is not going to happen. We are going to be there for you. Government's going to be there for you, but also nonprofits are going to be there for you. And a lot of times in situations like this, rightfully so, people do look to government to provide some direction and to provide some solutions. And that's our job. We are absolutely an inescapable part of this solution for locals. But we can't be the only part. Government cannot be the only answer to everybody. And that's why it's so important that we provide these wraparound services provided from groups associated with VOAD. We have an amazing group of local nonprofits that work together here in Southwest Louisiana. They care about our local citizens. And at a time like this is when we need them the most. And they are going to be there for our locals who are returning from out of town. Those two numbers, 211 and 911, are probably the most important two phone numbers that returning evacuees can remember. And 911 sounds a little scary to dial 911 if you need to get back out of town, but after a lot of thought and consideration, that truly is the best number for someone to call. Because when they dial 911, there is an operator that can connect them with resources to get out of town, but if there's also another emergency situation, that 911 operator is trained how to handle that situation. And if someone does get home, and they enter their home, and maybe they even turn the lights on, the electricity's on, and for whatever reason, even if it's been a couple hours, they realize, oh my gosh, I can't stay here. And it could be because they find mold in a certain room, and that's concerning to them, or they didn't realize that there was a leak in the back of the house, and this house is not okay to stay in. We're not gonna just leave that person in that home. The state has agreed to hold on reserve some of those hotel rooms to make sure that we have an option for someone if they say to themselves, I need to get back out of town, I can't sustain myself here. And we realize people probably don't want to do that. If they're coming home, they probably want to be home, and we want them here. We want them here, but we want them also to be in a safe environment. So 911, if someone gets back and they realize that they need to re-evacuate or get back out to a safe location, either a hotel room or a shelter provided by the state or the Red Cross. 211 is the other number. And 211 will probably be utilized more by returning evacuees than 911. 211 is if you're home and your home is okay, but you just need some help. Maybe it's formula for your baby. Maybe it's diapers for your baby. Maybe it's help with providing some bottled water or some food. Those are things that 211 can connect you with. And so those are two very important numbers. I mentioned the wraparound services and what VOAD can do for people. United Way is one of the most remarkable agencies that we have here in Southwest Louisiana. United Way is comprised of rock stars on normal days, on non-emergency days, non-hurricane recovery days. Right now, United Way is in their element, and they're moving like a well-oiled machine. And United Way can connect people with dozens of other agencies, Catholic Charities, Volunteers of America, Red Cross. So we're depending on them, and they know that. United Way knows that, and VOAD, the entirety of that organization, knows that. And that's the kind of partnership that we're going to need to be able to make sure that these returning evacuees know that they're not out on their own right now. They've got support and they've got help. And it's not only government, it's coming from nonprofits and the faith-based sector as well. I do have a couple other comments about some other issues. If we want to stick with the evacuee topic for now, and I'll just take a quick pause. So you want me to invite Denise up? I'll invite Denise Durrell up, President and CEO of United Way of Southwest Louisiana.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor said, United Way, we are a leading partner of volunteer organizations active in disaster here in Southwest Louisiana and our Southwest Louisiana chapter. And we are very happy to be partnering with agencies not only locally right now, but we've got a ton of nonprofits who have come into our region and who are staying here to help us get through this for the long haul. Our first foremost thing that we know that we need to address with this group of evacuees coming back in without transportation of their own is we've got to figure out a way to feed them and to bring food to them because they don't have access to get out to the grocery store or to go find food themselves. And so I'm very happy to announce that Salvation Army, Second Harvest, and the Calcasieu Council on Aging have agreed to not only provide the food, but to deliver it to them, to those individuals as they're coming back in and deciding to stay in their homes. We also, as the mayor mentioned, by calling 211, they can activate a long line of things and services that will be available to them, including tarping, mucking out, chainsaw work, tree removal, just anything that a lot of us have already done here that stayed here and have been able to remain in our homes, have already had the opportunity to do. We're now going to be offering that to those people as they come back in. And the way, again, that they can do that is to call 211 and register, and that will give them access to all of the agencies, not only locally but regionally as well, that are willing to help us here in our community as we move forward in our recovery. So thank you guys so very much. If anyone needs any assistance, please don't hesitate to call. You can reach us again through 211 or visiting our website at unitedwayswla.org, or just reaching out anyway, calling our office. So thank you guys very much. Any questions?
I was just wondering how many of, these services are being offered to these people who have been evicted from the apartment complexes.
We're dealing with homeowners because we have to have the permission of the homeowner to get in there and muck. And when you're pulling out someone's sheetrock, you have to have permission from that owner to do that. And so we're working with landowners to make sure that we have the permission to be in the space.
Would the meals that you're talking about also be available to people who have been evicted from apartment complexes if they can find a place to stay?
Yeah, they would be, and they simply can call 211 to register that. We know that we're going to be at the lily pad, so we'll have the addresses of those folks who are coming in, these evacuees. So we're actually going to be part of that greeting process tomorrow, and then we'll be able to know where they live and actually kind of follow them out to make sure that we've got the correct address and that our drivers know where to go, how many days we anticipate feeding them, that kind of thing. We have the ability to give them multiple days worth of food, depending on if they've got electricity. So a lot of it's going to determine, once we get to the home with them, to determine how the deliveries need to look and feel for case by case.
Do you need any volunteers, and if so, in what respect, with what kind of skills and with which agencies?
That it would be a loud yes screaming from the rooftop. We need volunteers across the board. All of our agencies do. We were actually just talking yesterday that we think we're running at only about a 25% of what we normally would expect in volunteers coming in to assist us. Number one is so many of our folks are affected themselves and don't have the ability. They're taking care of their own homes. The other, we've got COVID, so people are concerned about coming in with COVID issues. And so they can actually call, get on the, I'm sorry we don't have internet, but if you have a hotspot, you can get on our website at unitedwayswla.org and hit that volunteer button, or you can call our office at 433-1088. And if you know my cell, you can call that too, and we'll get you signed up. And we've got lots, whether you have chainsaw skills, you can help remove, you know how to muck out, you're handy with sheetrock, or even if you're just willing to work one of our distribution sites where we're giving out supplies every day and we're feeding people every day, or if you can drive a car and you want to help us deliver those meals. Just wide variety of opportunity for people. It really would help. We're looking for people who are 18 and older because of the COVID situation. So any adult, we would put your skills to work wherever they may be. We've got lots of opportunity for volunteers. Okay, is that it? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to just mention a couple other issues or items not related to returning evacuees. Number one, our recycling centers are closed at the moment. We are trying to focus all of our available resources and manpower on debris pickup around town. So our recycling centers are closed at the moment. I want to make some comments, and before I do about this next topic, I want to say that these are not reflective of local individuals that are representing Suddenlink. There is a lot of good people that work for Suddenlink. We have a lot of frustration with the management, upper level of Suddenlink. So I just want to make that statement before I say a few things at this moment. I received an update yesterday via email that I think Suddenlink was up to 26% restoration in Lake Charles. perhaps it's an unfair comparison, but I'm going to do it, that Entergy is about 99% in Lake Charles at this very moment. That 26% was about an 8% graduation rate from a week prior. And I personally believe at this stage in the game to have an 8% jump over 1 week is woefully inadequate. And to be at only 26% right now continues to be a disappointment. I want to make sure that people understand that the city does have a franchise with Suddenlink, but it is not exclusive. The city of Lake Charles does not provide for a monopoly of internet services. And I have said this before, I'll say it again, a lot of our frustration with Suddenlink, especially customer service, was before Hurricane Laura. And in July of this year, actually on July 16th, our city attorney sent a demand letter to Suddenlink asking for a meeting to discuss these issues. That meeting was actually scheduled for September 17th, and it was obviously postponed because of the current situation, and it took that long to get the meeting because of COVID. But I just want to say in general, the city of Lake Charles welcomes competition. We are capitalists here. We believe in that system, and there is nothing preventing someone from coming in tomorrow and laying down fiber and offering an alternative to Suddenlink here in Lake Charles. And you asked the question earlier about what should businesses do. I understand that that was a difficult question to answer, and this may not be a possibility in all situations, but I would tell that business to look for another provider at this time. Any questions?
Well, I know that, sometimes local government will, put out ads or whatever seeking proposals for additional providers, or, well, especially if they're looking, for an exclusive franchise. But what, if anything, is the city doing to perhaps attract, other companies to come in here and offer the service?
So just to clarify again, the city does not have an exclusive internet provider. We do not put out an RFP annually or every other year for an exclusive internet provider. Right now, we're having very intense conversations with other individuals to see if they want to expand their footprint in Southwest Louisiana. At times like this, especially what we're going through, and it could be Suddenlink or anyone else, you have emotional reactions to things, and there's a lot of people that are calling for some very immediate and very punitive actions against individuals or companies that are not living up to expectations. The hard reality and truth is, even if we wanted to do something like that, there would be legal issues with it. But then we would be even further down the road to actually get people reconnected to internet. So we continue to have conversations with Suddenlink and express to them our desire to see them move as quickly as possible. In these comments today, I don't think I've minced words about that. Certainly hope Suddenlink hears this and that their CEO hears this. But if you're asking specifically about other providers, we're having those conversations and we welcome competition.
I'm guessing you can't identify who you're talking with?
We would talk with any provider of internet, just as we would any other business that wants to come in and locate here in Lake Charles. Internet is a service, just like going out to a restaurant is a service. Certainly internet's more important than going out to a restaurant. But if any company wanted to do business here in Lake Charles, in any industry, we would sit down and have conversations with them. But we are certainly we are very adamant that there does need to be more options and more just general respect for people's need for internet service in the year 2020. It's not just about playing games anymore. The internet is about education. It's about access to news. It's about banking. It's about the ability to operate a business. And again, for us to be at this stage in the game right now, where we are, and have 26% reconnected for Lake Charles is unacceptable. Thank you.
All right. We want to go back to the topic in general of individual assistance and not the evacuees. I would like Sid Ellington with the Red Cross, if you want to come up in any role y'all are playing in that return of evacuees or anything else you want to mention about your activities, come on up, and then Jerry will ask FEMA afterwards. Sid Ellington with the Red Cross.
Thank you, Brian. Mayor, before I get started, I'd like to commend, the people of Calcasieu Parish. I've been to Iowa, I've been to DeQuincy. Here in Lake Charles is where I've been based out of, and this has just been an incredible experience. The cooperation, and the, with the United Way, with CPPJ, with Dick and his staff, and the support and the feedback and the exchange of information has just been great. So, Mayor Hunter, kudos to you and all the people of Calcasieu Parish. Over the last 48 hours, we have been working very, very closely with the United Way. It's tomorrow. We will be set up at the lily pad at Chenault Airfield. The United Way will be there as well. We will have our folks there. Part of what's happening is that individuals have been called at the same time that we're trying to bring people home to Calcasieu Parish. At that same time, we are throttling back or consolidating the non-congregate shelters or the hotels that folks are in New Orleans. So we've got a bus load of about 30 families is where it is right now, and they will be coming back tomorrow. Those individuals are individuals whose residences have been assessed as either minor damage or the residence has been affected. So what we're thinking is that as we go through this pipeline that Dick talked about a little bit earlier, that they will be the folks that pick up the phone and dial 211 when they get back. To assist with that, as part of the wraparound services, we will have staged tomorrow, I'm going to meet a box truck with totes, and in those totes are cleanup kits, some rakes, shovels, gloves, and the stuff that folks need to get started putting their life back together and they're in their residence. So that's the big piece there. We welcome Denise. Anybody that wants to drop off flowers, flowers are always nice, but but flyers, for the partners, the United Way partners, so that we can share that information. Should someone get to their home and find it unlivable, they will be given, as they're leaving New Orleans, a sheet that will have different contact points. There will be information on there where they can do a QR reader, and they can get a flyer from the fire department on mold and what to do about that. A link would be provided to the CPPJ, a link to the Red Cross, and other bits of information such as that. So the idea is if they get to their home, and let's just say that a big section of the roof, was blown in, and, a lot of water damage and mold is climbing up the walls, they can have that property reassessed by the Red Cross. We have hotshot teams that'll go out and reassess as needed on a case-by-case basis, because the mayor was absolutely right. A lot of times structurally a residence will look completely sound from the outside, but you get inside and you find extensive damage. So between the totes with the cleanup kits tomorrow, the information flyers, and then that connection through 211 back to have the property reassessed if needed, that's kind of where we're at and where we're standing by for tomorrow. Again, we're expecting approximately 30 families. Those numbers are still fluctuating, but it should be a small enough number for tomorrow, for this first time through, that it won't be something that'll overwhelm us. So Teresa, I'm open for your questions at this point.
Well, I didn't really have a question, except that we
Well,
would-
good. I'm off the
but,
hook,
well,
right?
I mean, we would love to be able to, interview some of them and that sort of thing. On the other hand, I don't know if it would be, they would really want us all showing up there. So if you could find out if any of them would like to share their experience, we'd like to hear how it went.
I will reach back to our external communications folks out of Baton Rouge and see what I can find. I'll give you my card, at the end of this briefing so that we can connect later on this evening. Are there any other questions? And I'll work on the flowers, Denise. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Sid. Next, we'll hear from FEMA, Jerry Stoller.
Thank you, Brian. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, just a quick update on some numbers. The parish continues to average anywhere from 500 to 700 new registrations a day over the last week. As of this morning, the total was 88,795 registrations for Calcasieu Parish. And again, as I mentioned last week, over 95% of the households in Calcasieu Parish have registered for federal assistance. These registrations have resulted in over $100 million from our Individuals and Households program, over $100 million in federal assistance. And that includes $66 million, over $66 million in housing assistance, and over $36 million in what we can call other needs assistance, those extraordinary expenses that come up after a disaster. I'm going to talk a little bit, give all of you an update on where we're at with our temporary housing program. But before I do, I just want to remind everyone that's watching that in order for a household to be eligible for temporary housing, they have to register with FEMA. And you only have to do that one time. You don't have to try to register again in order to be considered for temporary housing. But I also want to make it very clear that just because you register for assistance from FEMA, that doesn't mean that you're going to get a temporary housing, be offered a temporary housing solution. Those households that will be offered a temporary housing solution must have lived in a home that was either completely destroyed or very seriously damaged or found to be unlivable, and that should be the result of an inspection that's done by a FEMA inspector. Last week we talked a little bit about the process of becoming qualified for a temporary housing solution. And as of today, over 9,400 households, and this number, 9,400, applies to all 6 of the parishes that have been designated for temporary housing. So it's not specific to Calcasieu Parish, but 9,472 households have been are being considered for temporary housing. But of that number, 7,800 are from Calcasieu Parish. Over 2,900 interviews have been completed. That's again for of all six of the designated parishes, and over 1,400 of those have been identified as possibly needing a temporary housing solution. And of that 1,400, 930 potential households will be considered for direct housing. Of that 930, 378 households could have a solution on their private property. That's, of course, pending an inspection of that property. And 552 households are being considered for possible placement at a commercial park. So the takeaway from all that is that the interviews are continuing. We're about a third of the way, maybe a little less than a third of the way through that interview process. These calls are being made to these households 7 days a week. They're being made at different times of the day. And again, we will be very interested in talking to that family about the extent of the damage to their home and also about the composition of their family. You know, how many family members are there, and if there are any special needs, any members of the family that have access or functional needs, because we do have solutions that can address that. With regards to the sites, we continue to work very closely with local commercial park owners on potential sites. 11 commercial RV parks containing 45 pads for mobile homes and over 100 pads for RVs have been forwarded to our contracting office for closer consideration and ultimately, hopefully, ending up in a lease agreement. And again, those are for all 6 of the designated parishes, but a large number of parks. We are looking at as a large number of parks here in Calcasieu Parish. And I fully expect that by this weekend, we should see the results of some of this work done by our contracting office. We fully expect to have some leases at some commercial parks that we'll be able to, again, announce as early as this weekend. And I fully expect by this time next week, I'll be able to talk in more specific terms about where these locations are actually at. To support the housing mission, we have identified approximately 1,000 mobile home units that are currently at a staging area in Beeville, Texas, that'll be moving to our staging area in Alexandria. The movement of these mobile homes will begin later this week and into next week. And we do have over 250 recreational vehicles also identified for this disaster, and many of those are already being staged and being prepared for use at our site in Alexandria. In addition to this, FEMA's identified a lot of commercial vendors for RVs, commercial dealers here in the state of Louisiana, and with over 100 units that could be available for purchase. And FEMA is also working to get permission through our contracting office to perhaps buy as many as 200 units. We call this an off-the-lot purchase, again, from commercial vendors to help support this mission. The most significant development, I think, over the past week, as far as the housing mission is concerned, is that late yesterday, we were able to award and name a contractor for the haul and install process for this temporary housing mission. And the contractor is Disaster Solution Services. We are going to have an initial meeting with Disaster Solution Services tomorrow. And basically, this organization has a week from today, to get their operation up and running. And so what that means is that by this time next week, we should be able to begin inspecting some of these private sites for some of the households. And we should also see some of these RVs or mobile homes moving into southwest Louisiana. So we're very excited to have awarded that contract, and we certainly look forward to beginning to get households licensed in again, we'll begin moving those resources probably by this time next week. That's really the extent of my update this week for temporary housing. Again, I want to remind everyone that there's still time to register if you haven't already done so. The deadline to register with FEMA is the 27th of October. And again, the numbers in Calcasieu continue to be very high, again, between 500 and 700 a day over the last week. So you have to register, though, first in order to be considered. But just because you register doesn't automatically mean that you will receive a solution. So subject to any questions, that concludes my report for today. Yeah, the question was, is today, the 30th of September, the deadline to apply for the U.S. Army Corps Blue Roof program? And the answer is yes, today is the deadline for that. I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear that part of the question. Do they have like until midnight? Well, no, to register for Blue Roof, the deadline is today, okay? And then, but they will continue. The Army Corps of Engineers is going to continue to install Blue Roofs until the work is complete. And there's been some impressive numbers here in Calcasieu Parish. I believe close to 3,000 have been installed alone just in the Lake Charles metropolitan area.
Gary, I think she's asking if it's still open today.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know the hours off the top of my head. I don't have the hours for the ROE, the right of entry application site. I can look that up and possibly get that to you as soon as we're done here. Okay. Yeah.
Appreciate that, Jerry. A lot of good news from FEMA, a lot going on, especially with the housing, which we know is needed. We're going to wrap up today with comments from Police Street President Tony Gilry. And as he's coming up, I just want to mention something about Tony. There's thousands of stories untold in this parish about people helping others. And they need to be heard, but they can't all be. One of them, he underplays it, but Tony does a great job in the community. He's out there almost every day with many others, but personally working to serve others with food and making sure people know where to get help for your basic services. And his personal commitment is evident if you're around him at all. So we appreciate all your work, Tony.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. For one, I'm very excited about the news about our people coming back. I am very happy about that. And that's, again, as they said, once you get back, there's people that you can call that if you feel that you cannot stay. And I wanted to say, Brian, that Denise didn't say earlier, but United Way will not be serving anymore on weekends. They are still at the Throne of Grace Church on 6th Street, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. So, but I do want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you, Brian, for everything. So thank you.
If there are no other general questions, we are going to have a public briefing next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Do these once a week for now, unless something comes up, and if so, we will certainly get out a public announcement. We appreciate everybody's attention. This briefing is concluded.